we analysed data on mothers and work on family sizes. We came up with conclusions for the data and identified mistakes on data. Lastly, we used data to draw our own, like line and column graphs.
In our lesson today, we looked at graphs, studied trends, and analysed data.
Today in my child studies class, one of the outcomes that the students needed to achieve was analysing trends and patterns of data in relation to different types of parenting structures, in relation to different household structures, or why women might or might not be in work. Okay, so in order to teach this outcome, I worked with Zani and we just kind of looked at different sources of information and different graphs, and we worked together to come up with a few activities that got students to analyse different forms of graphs and tables and to extract that information and to show their answers in different ways. So they might have done stuff like transporting them into tables, or they might have analysed the graphs just to give simple answers, or whether it was just the percentage for particular years. But to start the lesson off, we looked at some key terms that we needed the kids to focus on, and those were around looking at trends, so the different trends of data, marginalisation of specific workers in the workforce of mothers, estimation, data, and line graphs. Now, for one of the first activities we did, we looked at tables, and one of the key forms of information we wanted to get from here was for students to use these tables in order to answer some of the answer this column. Okay, so we got them to use what they saw, and they needed quite a bit of help with this because they didn't really understand, did they have to plus these two numbers, or were they just comparing them to each other? So Miss and I worked together to get them to come up with the right answers for here. So they filled out the graphs, then they started looking at the key information in 2011 and 2010 to come up with these answers. But what was also really good was that we got the students to analyse what was the mistake in here. Now, by adding up the two numbers that were in this section and this section here, we can see that the calculations were wrong. So we kind of prompted the students and gave them hints to see what they could come up with, what was wrong in this section. The next activities we did was to look at the top 5 reasons why mothers are looking for work, or why they're not looking for work. And what we quickly did was just got them to analyse the graph and write down what the top 5 reasons were by looking at the stats that were given here. And the key thing was getting them to draw this into a separate table. So we didn't give them this the answer sheet, but we got them to look at that and create their own table. Was taking away the purpose of line graphs. Now for this activity, we got them to look at the changing households from a particular, well, I think it was 1910 to 2016. So in this, we got them to look at why they use these forms of graph. We got them to look at the different trends, so there was the overall downward trend, but also got them to understand why sometimes we use decimals and rounding up either to the highest, whether it's over or under, rounding up to the closest full number.